St. Jerome's home for children had always been the kind of place where noise filled every corner. Laughter, arguments, footsteps running down hallways. But that morning everything felt different. A fire had destroyed it overnight. Now the children stood scattered in temporary shelters, and the town gathered quietly in the church as the pastor spoke about what had happened. He spoke about loss, about rebuilding, and about something else too, hope. He asked people, gently but firmly, to open their homes for the holidays. Just for a little while. Until things could be rebuilt. Some listened with heavy hearts. Some cried quietly. And some, like Jesse, only felt uncomfortable with the idea. He didn't like chaos. He didn't like responsibility he didn't choose. And children, in his mind, belonged firmly in that category. But not everyone felt the same. Maggie did. On her way out, she couldn't stop thinking about it. About the children with nowhere to go. About families who might be able to help but were hesitating. "I should talk to Uncle Vic," she said. "Maybe we can take someone in." Jessie looked at her like she was speaking another language. "Kids?" "Yeah, kids. You barely have space in your house already." Maggie shrugged. "We always make space for people who need it." That was the beginning of the conversation that Jessie didn't want to have. "You should take some in too," she said. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "I don't like kids." "You like Martha." "That's different. She's like family." "She is a kid." Jessie exhaled, annoyed. "Look, I'm not built for this." Maggie didn't push him further, but she didn't let it go either. "Just think about it." And he did what people usually do when they want to end a conversation. "I'll think about it." He didn't mean it the way she hoped he did. But life has a way of forcing people to face things they'd rather avoid. Later that day, Jessie ended up at a small diner. Maggie was already there, sitting with children he didn't recognize at first. Two of them stood out immediately. A boy and a girl. Tired eyes. Quiet voices. The kind of children who had already learned too much about loss. "These are David and Tim," Maggie said. They had come from St. Jerome's. The fire had taken their home. They spoke lightly at first, almost as if testing whether the world was still safe. Tim insisted he hadn't been scared. David quietly disagreed. Jessie didn't say much. He wasn't good with situations like this. But something about them stayed with him longer than expected. Later, Maggie's voice cut through his thoughts again. "You've got more space than most people here." "That's not the point." "What is the point then?" Jessie didn't answer. Because he didn't know. That evening, he went home to his father, still unsettled. "I heard about St. Jerome's," his father said. "Yeah, everyone has." There was a pause. Then his father said something that changed the direction of everything. "I think we're going to take in 2 children." Jessie froze. "What?" And then they walked in. Abigail and David. 2 children standing at the edge of a house that suddenly felt too big and too unfamiliar. David looked around first, curious but cautious. Abigail looked like she had already decided not to trust anyone. And she said it plainly. "Told you no one wants us." That hit harder than Jessie expected. For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. His father stepped forward gently. "You're welcome here." Abigail didn't respond. David just watched. The early days were not easy. Abigail didn't trust Jessie. Not even a little. Every word he said she questioned. Every attempt he made she challenged. David, on the other hand, tried to adjust but stayed close to his sister like she was the only stable thing in his world. Jessie tried to act normal. He really did. But nothing about it felt normal. One moment he was alone in a quiet house, and the next he had 2 children in it who seemed like they belonged nowhere. "Can I come in?" he asked Abigail one day. "It's your house," she said. "But it's your room." That surprised her slightly. Not enough to change her expression, but enough to make her pause. Slowly she let him in. "I know I didn't start well," Jessie said. "You think?" "I was wrong." She studied him carefully, like she was trying to figure out if apologies had expiration dates. "You're not like the others," she said finally. "I hope not. But trust doesn't arrive just because someone apologizes. It grows in small moments. Like snow falling quietly outside while someone finally builds a snow fort with you." That was the first time David smiled properly. He had never built one before. Never been allowed enough time outside to even try. So when Jesse showed him how to stack snow walls and shape tunnels, something changed. For a moment, David wasn't a foster child. He was just a kid building something in the snow. Jesse noticed that too, and something inside him shifted. Meanwhile, Maggie kept showing up in small ways, encouraging, pushing, reminding him that change wasn't always a bad thing. "You always do the same things," she told him once. "And that's a problem?" "Sometimes, yes." Jesse didn't admit it out loud, but she was getting under his skin in a way he couldn't ignore. Still, the biggest shift came from something deeper. A conversation with his father. His father told him something he hadn't expected. They had once considered adoption. They had wanted more children. Life just didn't allow it. And now, sitting in a house filled with children who had lost everything, his father said something simple. "Your mother would have taken them in without thinking twice." That stayed with Jesse longer than anything else. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about responsibility. It was about choice. And memory. And the kind of person he wanted to be. The days passed. They went shopping. They tried to make Christmas normal. They learned each other slowly, through mistakes, arguments, and quiet moments that meant more than conversations. But not everything was simple. Abigail carried fear like it was part of her identity. She believed people left. Always. Eventually. So when things felt too good, she started expecting them to break. And one night, everything nearly did. A misunderstanding. A fragment of overheard conversation. Words taken out of context. "I heard you," she said, her voice shaking. "You said you didn't want me here." Jesse froze. That wasn't about you. But she didn't believe it at first. Until the truth came out fully. The conversation she had overheard wasn't about her at all. It was about someone else entirely. And for the first time, she saw something different in Jesse's voice. Not rejection, but regret. Later that night, everything came to a breaking point when the children ran away. No one knew where they had gone at first. Panic spread quickly. People searched everywhere. The town that had tried to help now felt like it was losing them all over again. Jesse didn't wait. He went out into the cold, searching through barns, fields, anywhere they might have gone. Finally, in a quiet moment, in a barn sheltering from the snow, he found them. David and Abigail. Small, scared, exhausted. And when they saw him, Abigail spoke first. "We're leaving." "No," Jesse said immediately. "You don't want us anyway." That's not true. But she didn't stop. She had already built the belief that she didn't belong anywhere. Until Jesse said something that changed everything. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. "We want you to stay." The words didn't come perfectly. But they came truthfully. And something in Abigail cracked. David looked between them, unsure. "Really?" he asked quietly. Jesse nodded. "Yes. Really." And for the first time, neither child argued. They just stood there. Listening. Accepting. Returning. When they came back home, something had changed. Not everything. Not instantly. But enough. Enough for Abigail to finally say something she hadn't said before. "You can call me Abby." And Jesse, finally understanding what that meant, didn't hesitate. "Okay, Abby." Christmas arrived not as a perfect moment but as a real one. With noise. With people. With imperfect joy. But also with something else. A family that had formed not because it was planned, but because it was chosen. And sometimes that is the only kind of family that truly lasts.